laptop, which is next to me. So we are live. We are live streaming onto my page, and I think Nat is, as I speak, is furiously sharing it on other pages, which is awesome because we are diving into what will be a casual, candid, and conscious conversation. And the theme that we have chosen, or Nat has actually chosen it and kind of said, hey, talk about this. And I was like, great, right up my alley, is parenting, relationships, which is everything, specifically the power of being present. And I know that as this whole conversation unfolds, it is going to be abundantly clear that being in the power of the present is so aligned with conscious parenting, with the future of parenting and relationships. So I'm your host. My name is Jacqlin Richards, and I am a relationship and parenting alchemist, which is a beautiful word to describe what it is that I do to bring parents from the gritty, shitty bits into the gold of their parenting and their relationships. I have some incredible panelists on this, I do believe, the second edition of the Collective Pulse,
Yep.
which is what this panel is called. I have the incredible Stacey Taylor down to my left. I don't know where he is on with you, but he's down on my left. And he is a men's coach doing incredible work with the men out there in the world to empower them and bring them into a different place in the way that they show up in their lives as men. And I have Tui Boyes, who is from Spectrum Education, doing incredible things out there with teachers and learning and parenting and just so much more. We were having a little giggle before, weren't we, Karen, about books, because I've just about completed my first book, and I was saying, and Karen's got like so many books out there, which is so inspiring. And speaking of books, we also have an ex-podcaster, parenting podcaster and author from back in the day, right, Nat, before you
Yeah.
became a visibility and business coach, Natalie Cutler-Welsh. So
Hello,
welcome,
everybody.
everybody. Welcome to the Collective Pulse panel. And as I said, we've got a powerful theme in parenting and relationships, the power of the present, right? There's a lot of P's in this conversation, and which you'll love, Nat, because you love alliteration. So we're going to start off with some icebreakers. And I know that we were sitting here just before we were going to jump on live, and we were saying what kind of energy we wanted to bring to this call today. And a lot of it was a lot of wisdom, of course, but delivering it with lightness and playfulness. So let's have a couple of icebreakers, and I'm going to put them into a parenting theme because that's what we're here for, right? So here's the first one. What's one of the funniest things that your kids have ever said to you, right? Or something that you used to say as a kid? Because I know, I'll kick the ball off while you guys are thinking, while it's landing for you. Well, I used to say the word martyr, and of course I meant tomato, right? That's what I was saying. But martyr was what it was, and that's what I believed that it to be, and that was a tomato. And my boy, one of my boys, he says hostable. We're going to go to the hostable, Mum. And then even a few years later, once he was a little bit older, we started going to festivals. Yeah, well, Mum, are we going to the festival this time? So just what's one of the funniest things that either your kids used to say or you used to say, trying just to break the ice here? Nat.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm like, yo. Oh, I
Seconds off,
can't think of
Nat.
a funny thing. I'm one of those nerdy moms that keeps the baby books, and I still put the certificates and the party invitations. Like I have this baby book, it's like a Bible and it's just packed. And I used to write down, when they would say something really funny. And honestly, there's only like one little, it's not really funny, but it's just adorable. I remember when Ruby was, let's say 4, and I had 3 kids under the age of 5, and she said, he wake up his little eyes or something like that. When he woke up, Jonah woke up from a nap. And I just love what siblings say to each other and how they speak about each other and the baby. So he wake up his little eyes was like something, one of those many things that I captured and wrote down in the baby book so that I would be able to remember. and
Oh,
cherish the moments.
I hadn't actually thought about, sibling saying to other sibling. That's beautiful. What a lovely take on it. Stacey, what do you got? What's something that you remember?
Yeah, my youngest son, remote, he couldn't say remote. So it's a little bit of a running joke in our house now that we will just say it and it's quite lighthearted and a bit of fun around it. So yeah, that's probably the one that sticks for me.
Yeah, the remote. Can you pass the remote? I love
Yeah.
it. Yes, I love it. And I love these little moments that we capture, right? That just become these running jokes in our families. It's awesome. Karen, what have you got for us?
Well, mine would be trampoline and alabrella, and we still call them that, the trampolines and alabrella. But my daughter is now 22, my son is now 24, and the funniest thing that she said to us lately, she's now left home, she's living with her boyfriend, and she said, if we break up, her and a boyfriend, she says, I'm not coming to live back at home. And I said, oh, why not? She says, there are too many rules. There are no, except maybe clean up after yourself, but too many rules. And so I think that's hilarious. I think I've done my job as a parent. She's never coming home.
But you didn't want them
Love
to come home anyway, do you, Karen?
Oh, I know. I'm trying to get rid of the other one as well.
Yeah, I know.
I love my children. I do love my children. I bred them to leave.
Yes, yes. Well, that
Love
is
it.
our
Love
role
it.
as a parent, right? Yeah, yeah. How, and I just wrote about this in my book. Our role as a parent is how fast can we parent them in a way where they don't need us anymore, right? Where they've got it. Yeah, beautiful. Love it. So I've got another couple that's kind of one for icebreakers. What's one of your worst parenting moments where you're just like, oh my God, right? What? And I was going to say what's your biggest, like what your biggest worst parenting moment, but oh my God, I've got so many. So what's one of them? What's one of them? Who's got one to start us off?
I have.
Go for it, Karen.
Being so angry that she wouldn't put her phone away that I took the phone and I literally threw it and it went behind the fridge, and it couldn't be found for a very long time. But I was just so angry, and it came with all the screaming and yelling and all the things that I'm not proud of. So yeah, that would be one of mine.
Yep. Pearlers, right? Yep. Awesome. What about you, Stacey and Nat? What have you got for?
Yeah, probably the same. Just snapping at my young fella one time, just not being able to catch myself and firing up at him in a way that, I could see that it really hurt him. And then yeah, just having to sit with that and look at that within myself and just apologize and put that right and really dig into where that came from. So that would probably be the one that really sticks with me and also hurt, to try to be consciously parenting. But like we say, we're all human and we make these mistakes along. Well, they're not really mistakes, they're learnings and lessons along the way, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely agree. And how we would ever get the idea that to parent in a conscious way means that we are not allowed to be human anymore is just beyond me. And what came for me just as you were talking, because my entry into supporting parents was teaching hypnobirthing, right? So teaching women and men, so taught couples how to unlearn about birth. And I remember another woman coming to me when she'd heard me talking about hypnobirthing. I wasn't teaching it so much anymore. And I certainly didn't teach her, but she was saying, oh, well, I didn't have a hypnobirth because I ended up with a cesarean and I ended up with a this and a that and a that. And I was like, well, who ever taught you that a hypnobirth had to look a certain way, right? That it has to be this calm, serene, birth that they might have on Instagram or something. But, it's being able to navigate your birth with whatever is comes your way, right? Whatever is thrown at you, so to speak. And let's face it, that is the same with parenting. So yeah, humanness, allowing ourselves to be human as parents. Yeah.
I was
What do
trying
you
to decide between two. I've got a few stories that come to mind. One is more of a teenager, drinking story, but I'm going to go for the other story because I think it'll really help more parents. One of my biggest, I'm safety net. My kids call me safety net because I'm super risk aware and I'm very safety conscious. And it's like literally her friends go, "Hey, safety net." Like that's what they call me. Anyway, so Jonah was 3 and we were visiting the cousins and they were like aunts and uncles. Everyone's upstairs chatting and the kids wanted to go in the hot tub and there's a pool right beside the hot tub. I'll give you the short version. But I was helping the girls get changed and I had my back to the pool. That's the tip. Okay. I had my back to the pool. Meanwhile, my child went to the hot tub, got in the hot tub, closed the lid on top of himself. And then I'm like, "Okay, girls, you're ready. Where's Jonah? Where's Jonah?" And then I'm like, there's all these adults upstairs, but I'm the one in charge. And if I'd run around the house looking, or, I couldn't see him, he wasn't in the pool. I didn't know we hadn't taken the cover off yet, looked around. Then I realized I lifted up the lid and he was in there, red face, like not in the water submerged, but like his face was out of the water. So that was like a massive near miss. And I've got a few stories like that. Most of them involve water. So my tip really is, if you're in charge of other people's children, especially, is like, just don't put your back to the, face the pool. Okay. In all areas, face the pool. There's my tip. It was a near miss. It freaked me out. But I want other people to learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you who are watching live, like watching the live stream, pop your worst parenting moment in there. I know that for me, when I share this stuff, it takes away the shame, right? It takes away the holding on and the secrets. And so what's one of mine, right? One of mine actually leads to one of my most magical ones, which is so often the way if we can actually sit in it. And one of my worst one, and this has been a little bit of a recurring one, I've got to say, but this is like the first time it happened. When my boys used to fight, like, like that. And it used to drive me crazy. And I used to intervene. Like I would go and I would literally stand in the middle of these two boys. And it's not like it was physical, but it took me back to when I was a kid because I had 3 older brothers that were physical. And even just the little moment of like, starting to get sticky and starting to get at each other would send me straight back there and all of my stuff would come up and I'd get really uncomfortable and I'd be, stressing out. And I would start to put that on them that's what was happening, right? And I would make that mean a whole lot of stuff that it didn't mean. And what my little guy said to me, and I'll tell you how it flips in a moment, was, "Mum, it only means something if you make it mean something." And I'm like, "Oh my God, where'd you hear that coming out of my mouth," right? Because this is what we do as parents. We make stuff mean a whole lot of stuff that isn't even happening because of what happened in our past, right, when we were kids. And I just thought that was a little bit of genius because it made me stop in my tracks, right? And the thing that I want to ask you, beautiful members of the panel, in a moment, because I will share my one first because it leads on from that one, is what's one of your most magical parenting moments, right? When you were like, "Damn, I nailed that," right? Like I really got it that time, because there's both, right? And if we don't flip the coin and start to focus on the magical moments and only focus on the worst moments, then that's what we're going to see more of because we're so attuned to it. So this magical moment that came after my little guy said that to me and I was able to stop and just sort of go, "Hang on a minute, what's happening here?" was that I a little bit of, well, not a little bit, it was actually a massive bit of wisdom that dropped in. And I was just like, "Well, hang on a minute. Are you guys just like kind of, sparring, how the boxers kind of, and they were like, "Yeah, Mum, that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's it. That's what we're doing." And I was like, "Oh my God, nothing to see here." And I just walked away, right? And now that's what I do. Because otherwise I'm getting in their face, I'm not letting them sort out their own conflicts, and I'm intervening on their brotherhood connection, right? So that's one of my magical moments. What's some of yours? Or what's one of yours to each of you? A magical moment.
Yeah, I've got a really good one. It's I realized early on that as parents, we can actually be so fearful and projecting our fears onto our children. And once I realized that, man, they're going to skin their knees, they're going to fall over, they're going to, to allow them that space with obviously being smart about it. But I just remember, as my children became teenagers, just seeing the freedom from that, from not projecting my fears onto them and giving them that space to, to fall down, to be hurt, to go through things that, and allowing them to figure out life for themselves rather than trying to protect them from everything out there in the world. And I think that's one of the most memorable things for me as a parent, is just understanding at a very young age of my children that, the world's not as scary as we make it to be. So give them that freedom and space. And I just see it within my children now, that freedom to express, that freedom to try, not to worry. It's not really failing, it's just learning. But when you're not afraid of trying, you're not afraid of failing. So that's the one for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, this protection and rescuing and that old way of being. And I know you and I, Karen, had a brilliant chat about exactly that, about moving from protection to empowerment, right? Where we're no longer feeling the need to rescue our kids and protect them and wrap them in cotton wool from the adversities of life, right? The challenges of life. So Karen, jump in. What's magical moments?
Magical moment. Let's go back a step for me though, because I always knew I would never be a perfect parent, and I actually parented right from day one, even before day one, as not a perfect parent. The first thing I did was I gave my children middle names that would cause them to have counselling. So people who know me, if you get an email from me, you will know that I always write my name Rainbows and Sunshine Karen. And so my son's middle name is Niwa, honouring my grandmother who was Maori, and Niwa meaning shortened for rainbow, and my daughter Rahana for sunshine. So they are my rainbows and sunshine. And so when they go, oh, you've screwed me up, and I know, I gave you those middle names. So I've never parented knowing that I'm perfect. But so I always set out to screw them up. Not, purposely, but we do, right? There's always stuff you do as a parent. But one of my fantastic moments, I guess, is one that I've got one left home. But there's always challenges, and I've always wanted to be the playful parent. And so anytime we have challenges, anytime something goes wrong, we've turned it into something in a positive realm for my husband and I as parents. So for instance, when our children did something really naughty or wrong that needed parent guidance or that needed to be addressed, we would hold court. And so my husband and I we've never been to court, but we've just watched too many dramas on television. And so we'd sit the child down and say, so this court is in session. You are now charged with, how do you plead? And the first time my daughter went there, she burst into tears and said, I've never been to court before. But as a parent, it was a great moment because one, we were showing them what really happens in real life when something really bad goes. And one of the bits I loved, we'd run it like a court session. One of the bits I loved was at the end, we would say, so we'd ask them what they thought the punishment should be if they were found guilty. But we didn't give them the verdict right then and there, because in real life, you don't get the verdict, or you get the verdict, but you don't get the punishment. So we'd say we'd give it to you in 2 days. So for my husband and I, it was actually really fun to deal with the yucky stuff.
Trauma-inducing.
Yeah. And we'd be like snickering away in the evenings going, oh, I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder what they're doing. And our consequences were never nearly as bad as what they thought they were going to be. So it just made it so much more fun.
Yep, absolutely. Oh my goodness, I didn't have the journey as a parent that you did. I spent years trying to be perfect, and that's why my whole book is called How to Fuck Up Your Kids with Grace and Humor, The Truth About Parenting, because we are going to screw them up. There's no way around it. And at least we can do it with humor and grace, right? And I mean, I say to my boys as well, I'm like, look, I'm going to give you a whole load of beliefs and it's your job to figure out which ones are true for you and which ones aren't, and it's such a gift that we can give to our children when we don't have to be perfect so that they don't have to either. Yeah, beautiful. Nat, magical moment.
Well, I'm a big fan of treating people, but also kids, as equal but not the same. And I think definitely in this past year, when I really encourage them to honor themselves, but also each other for their own gifts. And this year, Ruby's final year at school, she loves her school so much. She was just wanted to cherish every moment. She also had a few tragedies with some friends, so that really made her wanting to live in the moment a lot more. So she said, I'm going to be more like Jonah, her brother who's 16. He's so spontaneous. He's so amazing at being present. He's not a big planner because she's totally the planner and all the things. So I love that this was my magical moment when I see my 17-year-old daughter, at the time, channeling the energy or the life philosophy of her 15-year-old brother to help her with her vision and her goal of really enjoying and cherishing her last year at high school before going to uni. So I guess it's not really a moment because it was a series of months and months, but it was really incredible to see that happen without me going, hey, why don't you just try to enjoy the moment? Like, she decided she's going to be more like her brother. So cool.
Beautiful. What a gift to them to set that up, to actually be seeing them and each other, themselves and each other in that way. Beautiful. Awesome. All right. So, don't know how this one's going to land for you, Karen, after what you just shared about, being the not perfect parent all the way through from day dot, which I'm so inspired by. But I know for me that I wore very, very, very rose-tinted glasses before becoming a mother. And I know that I'm not alone in that. And I would love to ask the three of you, did you wear rose-tinted glasses before you became a parent, about what you thought it was going to be like? And if you did, to whatever degree, what was it that knocked those suckers off?
I'm happy to jump in because I wrote a whole book called If Only They Told Me. If Only They Told Me, about a lot of parenting things. But I was the opposite, Jacqlin. I was like, everyone made it sound you're going to be exhausted and you're going to be so busy. And I'm like, I'm a go-getter. I've got time on my hands, And my daughter, she slept a lot. Like, she napped. She was awake a lot at night, but she was slept like 3 naps a day. And I was like, what was everyone talking about? This is fine. So at first I was like, this is easier than I thought, until baby number 2 came along. And that was the game changer. And that was the game changer on the marriage. So my whole book was really based on keeping the love alive. And why did everyone talk about the nappy bag and the stroller, but no one said how hard it is on the marriage? So that was my whole thing. And so, yeah, that's really, in short, my answer is I don't believe in perfection. I don't do perfection. I don't do guilt or shame. So that probably made my parenting journey easier. But it was baby number 2, and then of course baby number 3. But it changes the dynamic when there's like a lot more people to take care of. And yeah, I found it the hardest on the marriage. That was the biggest surprise.
Yeah, you're not the first person I've heard say that what's everybody talking about? This is like a breeze, and the first baby, and then the second one comes along, and that baby is like the most challenge, like never sleeps, and
it wasn't the baby, it was just having more than one. Yeah,
right. Yeah, but yeah, just to plant another version, another experience in here, because this one, it definitely was the baby. It was like they're just completely different personalities, and yeah, that our pre-parent and post-parent self and pre-parent and post-parent partner can sometimes be a completely different person. Yeah, it just it's I think, and I'll throw in mine because it's so relevant to what you're talking about. I just had no idea how much I would change emotionally, like what would come up emotionally for me when I became a parent. Like, no one had prepared me for that, which you're talking about, right, Nat? It's like, why didn't anybody tell me? And for me in my journey, I had spent so many years as the party girl, and a very colorful side of my life, as colorful as that wall that's behind Karen. And then I decided, because this was my why, and for you out there, if you're listening, if you've never actually asked yourself, why did I have kids? And been willing to and open to receiving an honest answer, because a lot of people would say, but I wanted to, I wanted the love, and I wanted someone to love unconditionally and all of that. I wanted to have kids to clean up my life. And that was my why back then, when I was really honest with myself, which was only 7 years after I'd had my first kid. But what came up after giving birth, because I'd been so busy squashing everything down for decades and being party girl, that it was such a shock. Yeah, the emotional turmoil and what came up after becoming a parent. So that's definitely what knocked my rose-tinted glasses off well and truly. And what I'd say to that is, like, I wouldn't have even listened if someone had tried to tell me how it was going to be, because my glasses were so rose tinted. I thought I knew what I was doing. I was like, what they were sharing with me. So, Stacey.
Yeah, I think the big one for me was when I realized that I was parenting like my father. And it stung, because I realized that I'm not here to enforce my will upon my children. I'm not here to enforce my beliefs upon my children, that I'm here to give them a safe space and cultivate a safe environment for them to be who they are truly meant to be at a soul level. And I remember it so vividly the day my wife actually called me out on it. She said, "Man, you're like your father." And I'm like, oh, it just cut to the bone. But as I sat with it, and I realized, like, wow, like, you don't know what you don't know. And like you say, you've all said it, there's no manual to it. And it was once I got over the sting, it was actually a really empowering day to make sure that I created a safe container, a safe environment for my children, a safe space for them to come to me, a safe space for them to just live in their power and be who they were. And like Karen said, giving them a space to make mistakes, like giving them a space that, it's just a mistake, like we all make them. And being able to, and rather than the way I was parented, which was force, and was actually be able to just sit down and communicate and allow them that space to actually reflect and just learn the lesson from themselves. So that was probably the big day when the rose-tinted glasses came off for me.
Yeah, I remember that day myself, just my head in my hands going, oh my God, I've turned into my mother. And now we actually playfully joke, we'll actually say, if I've said something, and my boys will say, oh, I didn't know Nanny was in the room. It's something,
Same.
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? When they can spot it. So Karen, have you got something to share?
Well, my journey is a little different, because I've always wanted to have children. I've always been the mother hen. I would have had 20 children if I was allowed, or capable. I don't know what the answer to that, but when my husband and I had our first child, he became the full-time dad. So I wasn't a full-time parent. Well, I am a full-time parent. You know what I mean? I was running a business. I was traveling. They would travel with me. I was actually running 2 businesses. I wrote a book in the first year of Hamish being born. So the challenge for me was, and actually as a teenager, I always said I was going to be a solo mum, because I wasn't having any man screw up my children. And so I remember saying that as a teenager. And here I was giving the main parenting role to my husband, whom I love deeply, and him not doing things the way I thought they should be done. And so that did cause a lot of challenges and did cause a lot of friction. And so, as Natalie said, and you have sort of said too, Jacqlin, keeping the marriage alive was the number one thing that was important to me. And so I remember in 2001, so my son was 2, I was awarded a National Business Award. And in the speech, I talked about that you cannot be a businesswoman and making love to your husband thinking about the GST. And so this comes back to that presence, right? And so it's a long time ago now, it's 22 years ago, I realized that I needed to be present with my husband more. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question fully, but I think that idea that I realized that I needed to be there for him and allow him to do the things the way he needed to do it. And it might not be the same for me. And to parent together that and be present. So that was something I really had to learn.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was raised by a single mum, and when I became one, I just went to my husband, right out the way, I've got this, because that's just what I saw, you know, and I actually became a single mother well before I ever actually truly became one, you know, because that, yeah, pushed him out the way. And when I saw that I was doing that, it was a huge eye opener. So you spoke, Karen, beautiful segue into what I wanted to ask next, and would love to hear about from anybody, from the listeners as well. What does it even mean to be present, like to be in the present moment? I know you just touched on it there, Karen, with you and your husband, and not thinking about GST while you're trying to have sex, which is really good piece of information. But what does it mean to be present in the moment with your partner, with your kids? Right? What does that mean to you?
For me, I'm going to go a little bit off as well before I come back to that. What I realized was that for me to be present, I have to look after myself first. So I have an order in my world, me number one. And that doesn't mean I'm selfish. That means self-care. That means looking after me, filling my own cup to overflowing. I don't want to fill it up because then I have to empty it every day as I give. So I want to overflow my cup every single day and give the overflow. Number two was my husband. He is my second priority in my world. And number three are my children. And number four is my business. Now, people will tell you I work really hard on my business, but I actually work much harder on the other three. You just don't see it. So because I do that, because I fill my cup to overflowing every day, that allows me to be present. It allows me to have everything I need for everyone around me, rather than, trying to parent or trying to have a relationship from that empty cup and feeling like I'm exhausted at the end of the day because there's nothing left.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, it took me so long to learn that one. You know, they tell you to put the thing on the plane, right? To put it on you first before your kids, but I know a lot of parents are still not doing that, right? Like, and I think selfishness gets a bad rap. I think it's absolutely vital for us to put ourselves first. What else have we got? What does it mean to you to be present? And if you've got a tool or tip to actually give our audience, then share it by all means.
Yeah, I'd like to, like what Karen said, you know, this is what I live by too. I think it's one of the biggest myths that we inherit as parents is that as soon as we have children, they become number one. But I'm the same as Karen. I believe that you should always put yourself first. You know, so many parents get absorbed into their children. They stop living for themselves and they actually start dying because they're no longer filling their cup to overflowing. And if you don't fill your cup to overflowing, how can you give? You know, you can only give what you have within yourself internally. So, you know, that would be my greatest piece of advice to parents out there is, first of all, start filling your own cup up. Find out what you love to do, pick up some of those hobbies, start doing the things that bring you alive. Then work on your marriage, work on your relationship with your partner, whether it's your husband or wife, where you're cultivating it, you're growing it, you're excited for the next version of that relationship or the next version of yourself within that relationship, and then your children. And once you get that right, like things just start to flow. And it's not something I knew straight away. Some days I was doing it unconsciously. Some days I was in this hole of, it's all about me and selfishness. But I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself, is the greatest version of you and the things that you love to do. Because I always say your children will become who you are, not what you tell them to do. So they're going to look at your life, and if mum or dad are living their dreams and living on point and on purpose, they're going to do the same. If they're cultivating the relationship, they're going to do the same. But if you're not doing that and then telling them to be something that you're not doing, you know, that contradiction is going to come back for you to see it, which we're talking about, you know, unconsciously fucking up our children, well, that's one of the number one ways you can do it. So yeah, I love what Karen shared there is, and I think if people could take away that tip today to start really working on yourself, because if you don't, when your children leave home, it's a very lonely space to be in, not only personally, but within your marriage and even in your life, because all of a sudden there's this huge hole and you haven't actually, cultivated your own life. Like we've all said, we're preparing our children to leave home. Well, we should be preparing for them to leave home as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, I think this, so many parents out there just lose themselves in their role as a parent, right? As a mum, as a dad, and lose all the passion and the purpose of life. And I know that I was definitely one of them, 100%. And one of the things that I learned was to be the bow of the boat. Yeah, you be the bow of the, you're not the rubbish trawler where you're just trawling through your life and making everybody else's needs more important than your own, but being the bow of the boat and forging your path forward. And I remember when I allowed that to land, and I allowed myself to have my passion and have my passion and my passion and my purpose, have my passion and my passion, because there's so much.
And your passion and your passion.
I had to say it twice. My passion and my purpose, because from, when I started asking a lot of parents that question around why, a lot of them said, well, I didn't actually want to be a parent. Like, they love their kids, don't get me wrong, but, they did it for these other reasons that weren't what they thought they were. And a lot of these parents that I work with love what they do in terms of their purpose work and their passion. And I know that for me, when I ask my boys, because they know that I love my work, and they're behind the bow of the boat, they're wakeboarding on the water, right? My mum's like, woo, because they know what I'm doing, right? They absolutely get it. So that's my share, being the bow of the boat rather than the rubbish trawler, putting everybody's needs ahead of your own. What have you got for us, Nat?
I love that. I love visuals. That's so good. Being present has been an ongoing quest for me with them, I would say, in the parenting journey, and specifically when you blend that with entrepreneurship, which all the four of us today, we're all in that space, because there's always something to do in your business. So I was always like, I just want to be more present with the kids. That was like my part of my mission. And part of that, I think, is geeky stuff, like automating some emails and opt-ins and stuff that I'm not like the best at. But the key for me, because I also am a generator in human design, so I do have a lot of energy and I like to squeeze this in, and I can also do that. And then I'll also do this, I think, is boundaries, and so what that looks like for me is blocking out time in my calendar. And I remember when Jonah was young and he was at kindy, and I would be like, tech free Tuesday, like I themed, I'm like, I am not working on a Tuesday, that is our day, because otherwise I would be like, oh, he's busy playing with Lego, I'll just quickly do some emails. You guys know how it is. So my quest was always to try to be present with the kids. And it's tricky. It's tricky to do when you're like, oh, I'll just squeeze this in and I'll just quickly post this thing on Facebook. And so I think for me, boundaries and buffering in specific time, and blocking out and having those theme days and times. Like even now, I only interview people on certain days for my radio show, because otherwise it's too itsy bitsy. And I know that I don't allow anyone to book me, because when they come home from school at 3:45, I like to be available and present. I don't like it when I'm on Zoom calls when they come, even though they're teenagers, they don't really need me, let's be honest, anymore. I still like to not be on the tech when they get home, even 15-20 minutes. I see them, then I'll go and do a little bit more work till 5 o'clock. So that's worked well for me, is blocking out my time and sticking to it.
Because what you're actually talking about are boundaries with yourself, right? Self boundaries. And I know that, I was just sort of thinking about it, and maybe we could just do a quick whip around just to close our call of like, very practical, because that was one of the things that you said, Karen, about being practical and playful coming into this call today. One of the things for me is literally stepping back and just closing my eyes and taking a moment, like actually bringing my focus back here and internal. And I made a little agreement with myself just recently that whenever I reach for my phone just check my messenger, or, that I just do that and just come back to myself for a moment rather than that. And oh my God, I'm just noticing how many times I actually want to do that. And it's just inviting me to bring that back to here. So what's something just small that you can offer our audience, our listeners, of a physical, practical thing? Karen, you've got one that brings you into
Yeah, two things. One for you is put your phone on grayscale.
grayscale.
Everybody do this. Put your phone on grayscale. You will not reach for it. It's the color that is stimulating your brain. And as soon as it's all in gray, you will not want to pick up your phone. So everything's still there. It's just not in color anymore. And it will change the way you interact with your phone. But my my tip is around this is whose problem is it? Every time something happens as a parent, I think, whose problem is it? Is it their problem or is it my problem? Is it my husband's problem to deal with or my problem? Or is it the kid's problem? And so much like the story you told earlier, Jacqlin, when your kids were fighting, when my kids were fighting, I just go, whose problem is it? Actually, it's not my problem. They are just, as you said, sparring, or they're just, trying to negotiate and learn. Like in the jungle, the lions do fight. They play fight to learn how to fight, right? And so I would just go, that's it. I'm going to my room. I'd just take myself out of the picture. Practical strategy, easy to do. And I just do the calming and, so these.
Remove yourself. Beautiful. Stacey and Nat, what have you got? Practical tool present.
Yeah, for me, it's rituals. One of the things that I really created with my children growing up was rituals, like certain things that I would do every week or every couple of weeks, either as a family, as individuals with my children. So an example was always pancakes on a Sunday, like we'd cook breakfast together on a Sunday. And eventually my kids' friends wanted to come because of Pancake Sunday, and with my sons was every couple of weeks I'd take them out of school and take them for a haircut. And that allowed me to be present. And I made like that, that non-negotiable, that once we were on this journey, there was no phone for the day. So we'd go to the barber, and I was teaching my son about self-respect and self-love and honoring yourself as a man. And I remember from such a young age, he's telling the barber what he wanted, and this barber's looking at me like, what the heck? So one of the things that I think you can do is create rituals and really get to know your children. Like, man, this is what this child really lights them up. And this is what really lights this children up. Because once we start to look at what does that person need? What's their love language? What lights them up? Now you have to be present because it's no longer about you, and you're thinking, man, what makes this child tick? What really sets their soul on fire? Then you can create a ritual around that. And as you do rituals, like even to this day, kids, like my kids or my kids' friends is, man, remember when you took us to the barber shop, Stacey? Or remember when we used to come for Pancake Sunday? Or we'll just bust it out now and then. I'll text my kids, hey, we're having Pancake Sunday. If you can make it, come along. And they're adults. And 9 times out of 10, they'll show up, And it's a little bit of a running joke with my son now, because he had, from the time he was 3 years old, he had the flashiest haircuts you could ever imagine, because every fortnight he was at the barber. And now he's got this wild mullet that he cuts by himself. And it's just, but it's so cool to look back and go, that's his journey. And this is where he's at right now. And it's just awesome that after all these years, these rituals still have so much meaning. And for children, the thing I love about rituals is it creates a sense of safety, especially, like I said, as a man, I wanted to create safety, and safety is a constant theme within your world for children. That, man, like every Sunday this is happening, or my dad takes me to do this, or we do that, and it become a constant thing in their life. And and it's just that would be my number one tip for parents out there, because once you do a ritual, you become present because you're invested in it.
Love it. Pancake Sunday at Stacey's this weekend. So Nat, wrap us up.
Well, mine kind of, it fuses together the theme of empowerment and being present. I'm huge on empowerment, and it's 4 magic words that we've been using the whole way through as parents, which is say what you want. Like just say what you want. Because sometimes we can get so caught up. Oh, I said I was going to do this, but then I was going to do that. And what do you want? Right? Say what you want. So the example I often use is, I remember one morning I said to my husband, "Hey babe, so are you going swimming in the morning, or like, are you going to go running or whatever?" And he's like, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to go to yoga at 7." He's like, "I'll be home by 6:45." Perfect. Done. I didn't care if he was running or swimming, you know? So sometimes, but we have this thing where we just go, "What do you want?" Or say what you want. And then boom. And sometimes you do have to up your brave to say what you want. And, we have in our family, we have more of a people pleaser personality. We have someone that's more blunt and direct, which I love because I'm like, he is so clear on what he wants. He is not a people pleaser, and it's all good. My youngest. And I think that's just so important to be able to rock into a conversation and go, "What is it that you want?" Like, say what you want. And then in that moment, so then they come really present. They go, "What is it that I want?" Rather than, "Oh, well, I said I would do this and I think I should do that." And the duty and obligation and expectation get cleared out of the way for what do they want in that present moment. And that's been really helpful. Say what you want.
Love it. I said that to my boy a couple of weeks ago, and your face popped into my mind, Nat. So there you go. So thank you so much, beautiful panelists. It was a beautiful, powerful, empowering talk full of little bits of wisdom and moments that you can take away, and would love to hear your comments on the threads under the live video when it gets shared around if you're catching up on the replay. There will be a Collective Pulse panel talk with different faces coming up in another 2 weeks. It's going to happen every fortnight. So would love to thank Karen and Stacey and Nat for their contributions to this amazing panel, this wonderful talk this afternoon. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Ciao. Bye-bye, everybody. Awesome.